I want to talk specifically about citation because this is something that often doesn't get taught in a standard undergraduate curriculum. How do you cite in a scientific discourse? You learn about citation for quotes and literature and whatnot, but if you haven't taken a technical writing course, people often don't know the norms of citation. So I want to talk about this kind of nuts and bolts approach first, and then we'll talk about how this fits into related work in a little bit. One problem that I've been seeing a lot, and arXiv hasn't helped with this, is that people are only citing recent stuff. Ideas are often pretty old, so you should go back to the first person to actually think of the idea, think of the problem, and usually that's more than 5 years old. At a higher level, you should cite others as you would wish them to cite you, the golden rule of citation. So don't criticize, be generous, don't cherry pick parts of a paper, represent papers in their totality, because that is how you would like to be cited, right? As we mentioned before, don't write for length first. There are usually page limits in conference submissions and journal submissions. Don't worry about that yet. Write for your understanding first. Write down everything that's relevant, cite all of the relevant work, build the historical narrative, and then you can cut. This is going back to the Ramsey principles that we talked about before. And I don't want to pick on arXiv. arXiv is great. It's a great resource, but it's a preprint server. These things have not been reviewed, and oftentimes there is good work on arXiv. That good work eventually gets turned into a peer-reviewed publication, so cite that instead of arXiv, if at all possible. And this should be obvious, but I've seen this go wrong. Read the things that you cite. Sometimes people cite something because everybody cites it. That isn't reason enough for you to cite it. You should actually read it. This may involve going to a library. You may need to do some work to actually read the thing, but you should read it. If everybody's citing it, it's important, probably. You should see what's in there so that you know whether you should actually cite it, not just cite it because everybody else does. That's why you should cite and when you should cite, but how do you cite? Citations are a little like a newspaper headline. After you see a good citation, you should know for sure whether you should read that or not, and you should have a good sense of what's in the paper. So here's a sentence: we analyze the messages through persuasion tactics which have been used in cybersecurity. This is too broad. Just knowing that something has been used in cybersecurity doesn't tell you how it was used or why it's relevant to the text messages that we're talking about here. Let's rewrite this. So we analyze messages using persuasion tactic, which Oliveira et al. Applied to detect spear phishing emails, and Anand applied to persuasive blogs. We've added additional citations here to flesh it out, to connect to more things, and to show why Oliveira citation is actually relevant to the text-based problem that we're talking about here. And so now you have a good sense of what's going on and what tactics they use, and so now you have a good sense of whether you should actually read that. We cite a lot, so make it look nice. So don't have huge citations dumps where you cite tons of things. Either there's a representative out of there that you should be citing instead, and you can do inter alia, which means among others, or you should expand that out more and to show the contribution of the individual work. Citations should either be a standalone noun by themselves, or it should be attached to a noun as an appositive. If a citation introduces an abbreviation, you should make that part of the citation. So it should be inside the parentheses or the brackets where you have the citation. That makes it look nicer rather than having two sets of parentheses or brackets right next to each other. Citations go outside of quotes but inside the sentence, particularly for LaTeX, which a lot of us use for our citations in computer science. Make sure that things get capitalized correctly. If things are proper noun, like the surname Dirichlet, that needs to have a curly bracket around it so it doesn't get mangled. You might say, why is this important? It shows that you take care in your writing, and if you're sloppy in your bibliography, maybe you were also sloppy in collecting your result. And so you should have a good attention to detail everywhere. This is just a single lecture from a course. YouTube likes to show you these videos out of order, but if you go to the course webpage linked below, you can see the lectures in the right order, and you can get resources like homeworks or suggested reading. You can also visit quanta.org if you want to learn about our systems for creating computers that can answer questions, where quanta stands for question answering is not a trivial activity. If you want to help the channel, provide a big gradient to the algorithm by liking and subscribing.